So the panel discussion topic is the effective recovery strategies for mitigating and ransomware incidents. So the speakers are Sathish Kumar Dwibhashi, Vishal Salvi, Divya Prakash Mohan, Saksham Tushar, Venkatesh Sagare. Can we give them a big round of applause and welcome them?
Hey, good afternoon to all. We have just 25 minutes before lunch, and we'll try to keep it as crisp as possible. So we have Mr. Vishal Salvi, Sathish, Vishal Salvi, Divya, and Saksham. So with the understanding that all the people in the audience know what is ransomware, I'll start off with requesting Mr. Vishal sir to just from his perspective, what do you think, or what is your perspective of how the organizations, especially in India, is equipped to handle ransomware attack?
I'm audible, yeah.
Yeah.
So good afternoon to everyone, and it's a good to see all of you in this conference today. Just yesterday, I was actually just listening to the keynote by 𝗥𝗲𝗄𝗆, who's the Chief Research Officer of earlier 𝗥𝗲𝗄𝗆 and now 𝗥𝗖𝗍�security, and he was talking about the history of ransomware attacks. And he talked that the first ransomware attack happened way back in 1989, when the viruses were created, and there were multiple attempts. The word ransomware itself was also not invented by then. But then the real impact of a ransomware really started, where we really had a widespread impact, was somewhere when we had 𝗏𝗏𝗏. I'm sure you would be aware of 𝗏𝗏𝗏 somewhere in 2012, 2013. But the destructive impact was by 𝗦𝘁𝗄𝗆. 𝗦𝘁𝗄𝗆 was actually perceived as a ransomware, but actually it was not a ransomware, because it actually destroyed the data while it was showing it as a ransom node, but actually the data was anyway getting destroyed. So it was technically not a ransomware, but I think from then onwards, we have seen the evolution of ransomware attacks throughout the last decade. And one of the things that I have observed, my observation on this has been that the nature of the cybersecurity attacks changed from being specific and targeted to indiscriminate. And I think in my mind, that was a tipping point or a big pivot from the attacker's point of view towards how they looked at breaches and attacks. Because the moment you have an attack which is indiscriminate, which means that you don't really need to be a target to be a victim, things start changing significantly. And what we saw was that those organizations which had not really focused on cybersecurity, because they were not really getting impacted, like manufacturing setup or healthcare, started suddenly getting impacted, because obviously they were becoming victims. And suddenly we started seeing that cybersecurity became a common problem, and that's really how the last decade has unfolded. So I think to answer your question, there is obviously heightened awareness of ransomware attacks. I was actually in one of the largest CA conferences last year, and I did a poll for the people who were actually in the audience, saying that how many of you have actually faced a ransomware attack personally, and 60% of the people raised their hand. So that was staggering, in the sense that it is impacting a large number of people, because obviously they're not ready. The infrastructure is not ready, they're not prepared, they're ill-prepared, completely unaware of what they need to do and how they need to protect themselves. So I think that is still prevalent. I don't think people really get it. And those who get it, they learn the hard way around. And then after that, there is a aftermath of trying to look at what they need to do to protect. So we are actually still going through that phase where the general, smaller organizations or unregulated organizations are still sort of oblivious to what are the steps that they need to take to prepare themselves from ransomware attacks.
Thank you, Vishal. So as you rightly said, yeah, it has the overall ransomware as a attack has evolved over a period of time. Now, just to get a sense of what are the vectors through which an organization can get impacted by ransomware attack, I request Saksham to just touch upon, is there any change in the pattern or which are the ways by which an organization is potentially can get impacted by ransomware?
Got it. So, over the last few years, we have definitely seen a change in the attack patterns. Attackers have been working on building new tradecrafts and have worked to build their own security tooling, offensive tooling. But one of the key changes that we see across attacker landscape is how they have changed from very common attack vectors such as phishing and drive-by downloads to move more towards more complex attack patterns, where we see compromises against MFA. We have seen attackers trying to use info stealers, where they try to first infiltrate your credentials of your organization. And if you guys are following intelligence, right, there's a latest blog that has come up, that, one of the largest data breaches that is going on. You might have realized that the root cause of it was actually an SSO or a credential leak that happened in 2020. The password was not rotated, led to attackers actually compromising a large amount of customers, right? So basic IT hygiene has actually also promoted attackers to leverage a lot of different easier patterns, but there has been a significant shift from where the attacker first used to depend on users, where users were actually forced to click on a link, do a phishing or a clickbait, or say a drive-by download. Uneducated users going and trying to download, say, softwares from unauthenticated or unauthorized websites. We have seen all of that. But recently, the change in the paradigm is more towards credential. Identity is the new threat landscape, right? So everybody and anybody who wants to target or wants to attack tries to first leverage an identity-based attack or craft an identity-based attack against an organization or the target. And that has been the norm if you see the last few ransomware attacks that we have seen in the industry.
Yeah, thanks, Saksham. So, having known that there is a change in the emerging way the vectors can be used to attack, infiltrate the organization, request Sathish to just touch upon what are the ways by which an organization can prepare themselves to mitigate from or to safeguard themselves from ransomware attacks?
Okay, I think as Saksham said rightly, in fact, see, most of the ransomware operators are trying to leverage predominantly the weak credentials. So I think strong authentication is key, and most of the time this endpoints, right? In fact, we have seen a lot of organizations, right? The endpoint security is not strengthened because still there are organizations who probably still are on a very old kind of endpoint security solutions. I think today, thankfully, there are a lot of EDR, XDR kind of solutions which also helps enterprises, because I usually call those as first line defense, because end of the day, until unless you do not improve your authentication, improve your endpoint security, and finally, if you look at in the first line, second line, and the final defense, of course, ransomware, we can't stop. Of course, we can, to some extent, we can prevent, but having also a good kind of a good backup is also very important. In fact, because typically we're talking about three scenarios. One is, of course, how do we prevent and how do we detect, and finally, of course, assuming that it will happen. So let's be prepared also with good backup solutions. In fact, so a lot of, because today ransomware operators are just not talking only data encryption, it's data extortion, because data is taken out. And it's just not about you paying money and getting that key, because it goes into multiple, double and triple extortions. In that context, organization should also be prepared of having good backups, secure backups, and also immutable kind of backups, because so that you're prepared, so that you can restore back data. So while, and of course, then the other important area is training, and finally, the phishing is one of the most basic thing, how typical ransomware operators, as Saksham spoken about clickbait. So I think one is strong authentication, improve endpoint security, improve visibility across, because most important is to have the visibility to ensure that because most of these attacks are quite advanced. There can be already happening in your enterprise. So if you really have a good, strong visibility, I think these are different strategies how organizations should be prepared to face ransomware.
Yeah, thanks, Sathish. And as we all know, whatever defense that we put, it's just a matter of when rather than not. So ransomware, today or tomorrow, organization will try to face a ransomware kind of attack. Now, in case of an attack, how the organization should respond and try to come out of that situation. So what are the best practices from your perspective, Divya, which organizations should do if they find that they are in a situation of ransomware attack?
So thanks, Venki. I think the cyber crisis, or the important topic here is cyber resilience, how to run the business typically when there is a cyber crisis. Okay, so this is a thing where we need is a focus on. Suppose there is a ransomware that is there, okay, and it's all about how we are in the state of preparedness. So typically organizations, we used to have a BCMS drills for earthquakes or natural disasters or IT failures. Now typically we need to be in a state of preparedness for even cyber crisis also. So cyber crisis or the ransomware is beyond a typical virus incident. It's a crisis. So it is beyond IT or security teams, where you have to have legal teams, HR, even the big organization mechanism has to support it so that we get away with this crisis. And privacy teams also play a very important role in this thing. So to have this state of preparedness, maybe you to have a crisis plan, and there should be a tabletop exercise which proves and continuous improvement program to see through that this is getting revised, and it has to take a bottom-up approach. Typically, we get support from top-down. The board level or even the executives will support it. But where typically the industry will face challenges, the bottom-up, where you can have developers or the lower-level IT engineers, how they can be part of this crisis handling, how to create a state of preparedness, how to ensure that the backup recovery is there, how about communication plan. So these are the necessary items which has to be in place, and this has to be in line with our BCMS plan, which is tested and updated regularly. I think this is a state of preparedness. So it requires a lot of focus and energy also. I think most of the organizations, even they have a regulatory compulsion to do these plans. So I think we are getting into that mode of preparedness.
Yep. Thanks, Divya. Having said, security, always every organization has their own way of managing, and they put all the required controls. But it's a collaborative effort if you look at it. So ransomware attack, as being a good citizens and also being the different stakeholders, how the stakeholder ecosystem is evolving to ensure how as an organization can, or how they can support the industry or the companies to better be prepared for this kind of ransomware attacks. So being an industry veteran, request Vishal sir to just touch upon what the industry or the stakeholders are doing. Especially, I just want to touch upon one, the stakeholders. Second, in the stakeholders' perspective, government and the law agencies, how they are helping the organization to be prepared and how they can manage the situation.
So I just came from one closed group session that we had today on law enforcement, right? And IPS was also there, and he was chairing, and he was asking about how to really improve the overall public-private partnership and cooperation. And there are obviously multiple challenges that we are facing and what we need to do to work together. The reality is that right now, there is still a lot more work required to be done between entities, private entities and law enforcement to build a level of trust where they will go and actually start lodging complaints. So we know that there are multiple incidents and events which are happening. The last thing that the corporates are doing is to go and lodge a complaint to seek their support in terms of what they need to do. So, but that aside, if you look at it in terms of the broader stakeholder engagement, I think I would say that at least it starts with the stakeholder engagement within the organization. And I think the point that Divya was trying to make, that it is beyond the cyber security and the IT teams now. If you look at the issue of ransomware attacks, now all of us here in this room are all cyber security professionals. You just take a moment and ask this question to yourself, saying, do you know your role in your organization when you are hit by a ransomware attack? Okay? And you will find a different answer to each one of you. Okay? Now, given the fact that ransomware is very most important issue right now that the cybersecurity industry is grappling with, all of us in this room should know what your role is, right? You agree with me?
Yep.
Right? But I am 100% sure that there is a lot more that is required to be done for you to get there, right? Without even me asking you to talk about it, I know that we are ill-prepared. So the first thing that you should do is to go and ask your leader, manager, saying that, please explain me what is my role. And I think the other question that you need to ask yourself, so I must tell you this story, right? So we were in a group of CISOs and Accenture was breached, had not a major, but a ransomware attack, which was highly covered and made public. And so the CISO of Accenture came in that group and he was talking about lessons learned, right? And the first message that he gave us, which is what I want to give all of you here, is to look at as to do we have an owner in the organization who can take a call on what is our action plan in case we are hit with a ransomware attack. Like what Sathish said, right? It is no longer about just data protection. It's a question about reputation, because it is extortion to a level where your reputation is getting impacted, right? It's not only about your data. So you need to know whether are you going to pay the ransom. If you're not going to pay, are you going to engage with the gang? If you're going to engage with the gang, do we know exactly what you need to do? If you are a global organization, every country has different rules and laws related to ransomware. So do you understand those local laws? Because you need to have an SOP which is aligned with the local law of the land. You can't be compromising on that. What is your communication strategy to your customers? At what time is the right time? So all of these questions are very, very critical, and all of them need to be tested and planned and trained on before, much beforehand. So with the eventuality that if that ransomware attack happens, then you know what, you're better prepared, right? So I think every stakeholder, and that's what Divya was alluding to, that whether it's legal team, whether it is your HR team, your operations team, your business continuity management team, your leadership team, who need to take a call, and plus, of course, cyber and IT team, all of them need to come together if they have any chance of responding to a ransomware attack.
I think just to add a lot of enterprises today are supposed to, or rather at least I think getting into the journey of doing this tabletop kind of exercise.
Yeah.
Because see, that's how I think Vishal rightly pointed out, but while you may have all this, but are you prepared? And better to simulate that. I think the tabletop kind of exercise are becoming very, very important, especially.
Yep. As you rightly say, preparation is very, very key, and making sure that you rehearse it and have a clear plan. How do you respond to that incident in case if it happens? So any inputs, Divya?
Yeah. There is also external partner support. It could be an EDR vendor or the retainer services, the legal counsels, the communication partners. So they have to also be engaged. So this has to be a very clear plan, okay, in terms of timelines also. So typically plan says 0th hour what has to be done, 1st hour what has to be done, when it has to be called out as a crisis. So when we have to bring in this mechanism. So this is all about the plan.
Yeah, plan, yeah. Being well prepared, that says. So Saksham?
Yeah, I think also from an incident response strategy, your strategy should be in your muscle memory, right? If you practice it enough number of times, the containment strategy should strike and should be well balanced, so that when there's a ransomware outbreak, you're quick to detect and you're quick to contain. We have seen ransomwares coming in the market that have got warm nature, right? They will spread through your network. So the blast radius keeps increasing day by day. So, or hour by hour. So what you need to do is basically have that containment strategy at a pull of a plug kind of a thing, where it's easy for you to, a lot of EDR now supports containment over a click of a button, right? That is one good strategy that you can implement, how you can contain an entire fleet of hosts or endpoints at require or at will when required. And also do enough, as other panelist members emphasized, enough number of times, simulate the behaviors, and be quick to actually detect, right? Detection plays a very quick, important role. If you cannot protect something if you can't detect it or if you can't see. So your telemetry and your logging solution or your visibility should be absolutely perfect. Otherwise, it's very difficult, or the number of hours that you have to respond to an incident actually increases, right? You might respond to a ransomware after 8 hours if you're not detecting it at that moment, right? So it becomes important that your containment and your detection strategy are well balanced.
Thanks. So in the interest of time, we have only 3 minutes. So I'll open the forum to the audience for any questions.
Hi. Actually, I want to know a few things from you. One is, so what is the vulnerability patching things? So I didn't heard about importance of SMB versions and patching things.
I think I already spoke about the IT hygiene, These are all part of the IT hygiene, patching, vulnerability management. So I spoke about the first line defense, I think that's very, so we assume that that's part of the whole overall cyber IT hygiene, basically.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. My name is Somesh and I am from 𝗤𝗁𝗏 Solutions. So recently we did the tabletop exercise and we keep on doing. One of the thing after that exercise I realized, insurance service provider, right? So based on your experience, like all the empanelment, how do you see how much effective they are in terms of negotiating, in terms of paying the damages you have, and the materiality breach is also there, right? So you need to see the reputation calculation and all those. So containment and everything is done, let's say, because you have backup, you have recovered. That is not a IT problem now. It's a board problem now because it's about the reputation and you must pay even though if you have recovered. So how much, does the insurance provider providing you the money, what they have committed, what is your limit? Or is there complications, further complication we need to take care?
See, basically, I'll just put...
No, so let me give it a stab and maybe then the panelists can add it. See, basically, there are different regulations, I said, in each country, right? So some countries have banned ransomware payments. So there is no way you can claim insurance in that situation, okay? I think there was also this thing that, the moment you have that you can pay insurance, then those companies who have a good cyber insurance are the ones who get attacked. Okay, because there is a good chance of them paying out the money also. So that is more kind of at on the humorous side, but I think that news is also there. So I think it is all based on different, see, the positions that the insurers are taking on this particular topic is very dynamic and very fluid, and it is changing. But it is changing towards a situation where they will actually not, eventually they will actually not honor somebody actually paying a ransom, right? So, as in the money that was paid by ransom. But for example, if there are damages which happened to your organization because of a ransomware attack and you didn't pay, those damages can be treated as a cyber crime. And if you have insurance against a cyber attack, then of course this is also one example of that. So you are entitled to claim in that situation.
Most of them, the forensics, whatever the money you spend, I think that is paid by the insurance company. Because
the recovery costs, the potential customer, so all of that is very well defined in your contract, right? So all of that, the whole cost can be insured, apart from the ransom money that you paid.
Yeah, so that's what my worry is. You got heart attack, right? You have the insurance, you get into hospital, and after, once you are going to claim that particular amount, you will come to know there are sub-limits, there are so many limits, and you will never get the entire money what you have paid to hospital, right? And similarly, nowadays, at least health industry has streamlined, but my question is more towards this particular industry, because security personals, they are aware, they have practiced it, they know everything. The problem come with the CFO, legal team, media team, PR team, rest all other team. They have not practiced it much, right? So the problem again, my worry is will insurance provider will pay the money or not, even in case if I am paying to ransom?
Yeah, so see, what I'm trying to say is that overall cyber insurance is a new area, even for the insurance company, and it is something which is prevalent for last 15 years or so. It was not there before that. But it is also a new opportunity for them to do business, because this is a new sense of risk which is coming into the market. And so it is a huge potential business for them, right? So they're obviously working towards building that portfolio, right? What they are trying to do right now is to understand how do they underwrite the risks properly, so they are able to assess organizations. And they have a checklist. And they also have consultants who work with every organization. So before the insurance, they understand the maturity of the organization. Exactly. No, ransomware is just one example, but overall, see, whenever you enter into a insurance for cybersecurity, you will not do it only for ransomware. You will do it as a generic thing, right? Which will cover ransomware attacks also. Correct.
And mostly cyber insurance comes under the liability insurance.
Yeah.
That's how.
And in the interest, I think we can have an offline discussion as well.
Yeah, in interest of time, I would request to keep the discussion only on the stage or maybe offline. Okay, thank you.